I don't know if just me or not, but this year's Google Pixel keynote felt like the shortest among all other Google keynote. And I also felt like they mostly talked about from the software perspective of the new Pixel 8, 8 Pro and the Pixel Watch 2. Obviously Google is a software company and it's in their genes, but man, they mostly talked about software. So they did what they did, but we are going to have a look on the other side of software, which is hardware. Basically every single change that Google did in terms of hardware, but obviously did not talk about all of them in the keynote. And you need not to go through that crap to figure out the differences. I mean, what is a tech video creator if it doesn't make tech easier to understand? Let's first take the Pixel 8 and see what hardware upgrades did it get. So the big changes that were introduced this year were mostly from the software perspective, but there were also some mid-level yet important hardware changes like the dimensions of the Pixel 8. The Pixel 8's body is now shrunken down to a much more compact form factor from its height and width, but the thickness is increased just a bit when compared to last year's Pixel 7. It doesn't mean that the screen size is also reduced, it's not. It's basically the same. So now it's a more all-around reachable smartphone to hold. The peak brightness is increased from 1400 to 2000 nits, which is a plus 600 nits increase in peak brightness on the Pixel 8. So visibility in the sunny conditions should be better than before. The refresh rate is also a bump up to 120 Hz, which is an improvement from last year's 90 Hz. The Pixel 8 also gets a bigger battery than its previous generation, adding 220 mAh more in the total capacity. And that I guess explains the increased thickness of the smartphone. Beside these somewhat mid-scale hardware improvements, there are also some little improvements that can easily go unnoticed. Like take the ultra-wide camera as an example. It's 11.8 degree more wider than the Pixel 7. Or take the new Google Tensor G3 chip. Or the shift from Android 13 to 14. Now we know that these changes are not substantial changes, but only bits of changes. But for the record, these are some changes, and some change is better than nothing, right? And as for all of them, here is a summary of all the hardware changes in one single page. Take a screenshot or save this video if you want, for future references. There is also one more headline that Google announced just before ending the keynote, that they are offering 7 years of OS updates and security updates. And it took me a little while just to process that info, but after that all kinds of questions came to my mind, like will the phone's battery even last 7 years, or the phone's screen even last 7 years? But yeah, they have promised and now they need to deliver that. Next, let's take the Pixel 8 Pro. Now the story mostly remains the same for the Pro model. Not a lot of changes in terms of hardware besides two big improvements. The first one is the jump from 12 to 48 megapixel in the ultra wide camera, and the second one is the peak brightness, or the maximum brightness in a display. In comparison, the Pixel 7 Pro has 1500 nits and now the current Pixel 8 Pro has 2400 nits, which is a plus 900 nits jump. So viewing in the sun is definitely not going to be a problem at all on both the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro. And besides those two changes, all the other upgrades that you see here in terms of hardware are on a very minute level. I feel like the difference between the Pixel Pro model is even less than the regular Pixel on hardware level. Now I know it's half the stories of these smartphones, but it is half the story. I also feel like some of you might be thinking that I didn't talk about any of the software features that Google announced, and you're right. So to make you understand in very simple words, I currently don't have the Pixel 8 or the 8 Pro with me right now, but I did talk about every single change in terms of hardware on these smartphones, excluding software, because software is a kind of thing that you use and experience and feel, and I can't do that right now. But for now, this is my way to explain you in the best way possible about the newly launched Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro. And I hope you get something out of this video. Okay, so that's a wrap up.